The rain fell gently on the rooftop of Richard's mansion as he stood by the large window, lost in deep thought. He was one of the richest men in the country, owner of many companies, cars and properties. But despite his wealth, Richard felt like a stranger in his own home. His wife, Grace, only smiled when there was money. His daughter, Sophia, spent her days posting expensive things online, while his son, Daniel, was quiet and always stayed close to him. One evening, Richard sat at the dining table, watching his family eat. Grace didn't even look at him. Sophia was on her phone, giggling at something online. Only Daniel noticed him and asked, "Dad, are you okay?" Richard gave a small smile. "I'm fine, son." But deep inside, he wasn't. He was tired. Tired of fake smiles, tired of being used for his money. He needed to know if his family truly loved him, or if they only stayed because of the luxury. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Richard called his personal assistant, Michael, he said over the phone, "I want you to transfer everything to the private account, close down the companies for now, tell everyone I'm on break, and most importantly, no one must know I'm still rich." Michael was confused. "Sir, are you sure? This will shake the whole family." "That's the plan," Richard replied calmly. "I'm going to test them." The next morning, Richard gathered his family in the living room. Grace walked in with a frown. "Why are we all here so early?" Richard took a deep breath. "I have bad news. I've lost everything. The business crashed. The banks have frozen our accounts. We have nothing left." Grace jumped up. "What do you mean nothing?" "You're joking, right?" "I wish I was," Richard said sadly. "We have to leave this house today. I have only one place we can go now. My late father's small house in the village." Sophia screamed, "Village? God forbid. Me, Sophia, in a village." Daniel quietly looked at his father and asked, "Are you serious, Dad?" Richard nodded. "Yes, it's the only way." Grace shouted, "You useless man! How can you lose everything just like that? What kind of man are you?" Richard didn't respond. He only turned around and walked away. Daniel followed him. "Dad," he said softly, "don't worry, everything will be fine." Richard smiled at his son, a small tear escaping his eye. "Thank you, Daniel. You don't know how much that means to me." By evening, they packed a few clothes into bags. The mansion was silent. No more maids, no more drivers. Richard drove the family in a small old car Michael had bought for this plan. The road to the village was rough and dusty. Grace complained every second. Sophia refused to wind down her window. Daniel quietly enjoyed the breeze, holding his father's hand from the back seat. After hours of driving, they arrived at a small compound with one house made of mud bricks and an iron roof. Grace stepped out of the car and looked around with her mouth wide open. "What is this horror? Richard, are you mad? Are we supposed to live here?" Sophia opened the door slowly, covering her nose. "Yuck! What is this smell? This place stinks." Richard stepped out of the car and looked around calmly. "This house belonged to my late father. We'll manage here for now." "Manage?" Grace shouted. "Me? Grace? I should manage inside this rubbish? After all the years of enjoying mansions, you want to bury me in this dead place? You must be joking." Sophia shook her head. "I can't survive here, Daddy. There's no Wi-Fi, no AC, no bathroom mirror. How do people even live like this?" Only Daniel stayed quiet. He came down and helped his father carry the bags into the house. The front door creaked as they opened it. The living room had only 2 plastic chairs and an old wooden table. Cobwebs decorated the corners and the air smelled like dust and sweat. Grace refused to enter. "Richard, you better take me back to the city now. I'm not entering that nonsense." "We have no choice," Richard said. "This is all we have for now." Sophia hissed loudly. "I should have just stayed with my boyfriend." Daniel turned and stared at her. "So we're really in this together? Shouldn't we try to support Dad instead of complaining?" Grace shot him a look. "Will you shut up? Must you talk every time? You think we're all here to suffer with your father?" Daniel shook his head in disbelief and continued helping his father arrange things inside the house. Richard smiled slightly and patted Daniel on the back. Later that evening, Richard tried to boil water outside using firewood. He had forgotten how to even light a fire. His hands shook and smoke filled his eyes. Daniel came to his side and helped him arrange the sticks properly, blowing air into the fire. "I used to watch the village boys do this during holidays," Daniel said softly. "I remember," Richard nodded. "Thank you, son. You're the only one making this easier for me." Meanwhile, Grace sat on a rock, staring at her broken nails. "This is a nightmare. No cream, no TV, not even a fan. God, punish poverty." Sophia was busy trying to get a signal on her phone, raising it high and walking around the compound. "There's no Instagram here, no Snap, no TikTok. Are we still in this country?" That night, they all slept in one room. A small mattress was spread on the floor. There was no light, only a lantern with low flame. Mosquitoes sang loudly in the dark. Grace kept slapping her arms, cursing under her breath. Sophia kept tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Richard lay on the mat, staring at the roof. Daniel lay beside him, gently tapping his shoulder. "Dad," he whispered, "don't worry. I know this is hard. But we'll make it." Those words touched Richard deeply. He turned slightly and looked at Daniel in the darkness. "Thank you. You don't know how much you're helping me stay sane." For the first time in years, Richard felt a sense of real connection, not with his wife or daughter, but with his son. By the next morning, the rooster crowed loudly, waking them all. Grace shouted, "What kind of nonsense bird is that? Why is it screaming in my ear?" Richard stood up and stretched. "It's morning. Time to start our new life." Sophia came outside looking horrible. Her wig was half off, and she had mosquito bites all over her arms. "I can't do this. I need to go back to the city. I feel sick." Richard ignored her and picked up a hoe. "We need to start farming. If we're going to eat, we must work." Grace burst out laughing. "Did I hear you say farm? You want me, Grace, to go to the farm? God forbid." Sophia folded her arms. "Me hold hoe? Never. I'll rather die." But Daniel collected the hoe from his father. "Let's go, Dad. I'll go with you." Richard smiled proudly, tears hiding behind his eyes. "Let's go, son." As they walked to the farm, Richard felt something deep inside. His heart ached, but at least one person still stood with him. Daniel. Meanwhile, Grace stayed back, thinking of how to escape the hardship. She noticed a group of village women gossiping under a mango tree. Among them was a man dressed in fine native wear, with a gold chain and a large stomach. He looked rich. He was the village chief, Chief Morgan. Grace's eyes lit up immediately. That was the beginning of her own betrayal journey. Life in the village was nothing like what Grace and Sophia were used to. By the third day, everything felt like a curse. The heat was unbearable. There was no fridge, no running water, and worst of all, no housemaids to do the chores. Grace sat under a mango tree, using a hand fan made from palm leaves, her eyes full of frustration. "This is not life," she muttered. "This is punishment." Sophia walked past, wearing slippers that didn't match, holding a small bucket to fetch water. Her makeup had long washed off, and her once perfectly styled hair was now rough and dry. "Mummy," she whispered, "we need to do something fast. I can't cope anymore. My skin is becoming dark." Grace looked around and spotted the man from the other day, the village chief, coming out from a nearby compound. He wore an expensive wrapper, gold chains, and dark glasses. Two young girls giggled as they followed him, carrying his bag and cane. "That must be the chief," Grace said to Sophia, her eyes narrowing. "He looks rich." Sophia turned and stared. "Is that how chiefs look in villages? See how he's shining." Grace stood up and adjusted her wrapper. "I'm going to greet him." "Mummy," Sophia whispered, "what are you planning?" Grace smiled. "Sometimes, when a door closes, a window opens. Let me go and see if this window has AC." She walked confidently towards the chief, swinging her hips and pretending to limp slightly so she would appear fragile. "Good morning, sir," she greeted, bowing a little. Chief Morgan looked at her and smiled widely. "Well, well, who do we have here? You're not from this village." "I'm not," Grace said sweetly. "We just moved in. My husband brought me and our children here after losing everything in the city. It's been so hard." Chief Morgan chuckled. "A fine woman like you shouldn't suffer. Why don't you sit with me for a while?" Grace sat beside him under his shaded hut. "Thank you, Chief. You are too kind." He waved at one of the young girls to bring her a drink. Soon Grace was laughing and sipping a cold malt while her husband Richard and Daniel sweated under the hot sun on the farm, digging the hard earth with bare hands. Back at the farm, Richard looked up at the sun and wiped sweat off his forehead. "This land is tough, but we must keep going." Daniel nodded. "We'll plant cassava here, then maize on the other side." "Smart boy," Richard said with pride. "You're learning fast." They worked for hours before returning home. When they reached the compound, Grace was already there, smiling and whistling. A strange sight. "Where are you coming from?" Richard asked, surprised. "Just walking around," Grace said quickly. "I met some village women. They showed me where to fetch water and wash clothes." Richard raised an eyebrow. "You washed clothes?" Grace laughed awkwardly. "Well, I tried." Daniel looked at her fingers. They had no sign of soap or water. Her wrapper smelled like perfume, not firewood. But he said nothing. Later that evening, Sophia slipped out of the house and went to the only small bar in the village. A group of young and older men sat outside, drinking palm wine and playing music. She sat down at the corner, crossed her legs, and began to scroll through her phone, even though there was no network. A married man named Mr. Brown noticed her. He was in his late 40s, fat, and owned a small shop in the market. He walked over and said, "You're too beautiful to be sitting alone." Sophia smiled. "I'm not from here." "I can see that," he replied. "What's a city girl like you doing here?" "My foolish father brought us to suffer," she said. "He said he lost all his money." Mr. Brown smiled. "I can make you comfortable. If you want, I can give you money, even buy you small things to remind you of the city life." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Really? What's the catch?" He laughed. "No catch. Just come and visit me once in a while. My wife doesn't have to know." Sophia bit her lip, pretending to think. "Okay, but you must keep your word." "Of course," he said, already placing his hand on her shoulder. And just like that, Sophia began her secret life. Back at home, Richard sat outside with Daniel under the moonlight. "Dad," Daniel said, "do you think we'll ever go back to the city?" Richard looked up at the stars. "Maybe, but not until I find out who truly deserves it." Daniel didn't understand. "What do you mean?" Richard sighed deeply. "You'll understand soon." Every morning in the village felt like a punishment to Grace. There was no warm shower, no sweet-smelling body cream, and no breakfast in bed. Instead, it was wake up early, sweep the compound, fetch water, and eat dry cassava and pepper soup with no meat. Grace grumbled loudly one morning as she tied her wrapper loosely around her chest. "What kind of useless life is this?" "I'm tired, Richard. I didn't sign up for this village nonsense." Richard sitting outside, he looked at her calmly. "We have no choice, Grace. We're lucky to even have this roof over our heads." Grace hissed and stormed into the house. Unknown to Richard, Grace had started disappearing every afternoon. She would tie her finest wrapper, wear perfume she secretly saved, and walk towards the only hotel in the village, Golden Moon Lodge. Inside the lodge, Chief Morgan sat like a king. He had already bribed the hotel receptionist, a young girl named Peace, with 10,000 naira every week to keep his secret visits with Grace hidden from his 4 wives. "Peace," he would whisper, sliding her the money, "if my wives ever come asking questions, you didn't see me. You understand?" Peace would smile nervously and nod. "Yes, Chief. I won't talk." One sunny afternoon, Grace entered the hotel smiling, her hips swaying as she walked. Chief Morgan was already waiting in a private room, wearing only a white singlet and shorts. His gold chain dangled on his chest, and he was chewing roasted meat. "My queen," he called out with a grin, "you're even more beautiful today." Grace laughed sweetly and sat beside him on the bed. "You just know how to make a woman feel special." Chief Morgan placed a piece of meat into her mouth. "That's because you deserve it. Let me tell you something today, Grace." "I'm listening," she said, biting the meat gently. "I'm going to chase all my 4 wives away." Grace opened her mouth in shock. "All of them?" "Yes, I don't want them anymore. You're the only woman that truly satisfies me. I want to marry you and build you a bigger house here in the village." Grace blinked fast. "You're serious?" Chief Morgan nodded. Very serious. In fact, you know the king of this village is very old. He coughs every minute. Soon he'll die. And guess what? What? Grace asked, her eyes wide. I will become king. I've already been told by the elders. I've given them gifts. Big goats and bags of rice. They're already on my side. Grace gasped. So I will become the queen. Chief Morgan smiled. Of course, Queen Grace. They both laughed loudly. He then whispered closer to her ear, Do you know how much gold is sold? My dear, I have gold mines. I have land, I have shops, and I have oil connections. I'm not just rich. I am powerful. Grace stared at him like a schoolgirl staring at a sweet. Chief, you're too much. Chief Morgan touched her cheek. Leave your husband. That poor man is finished. Come and live your best life. I want to rent a beautiful house for you here in this village, far away from your old husband and those useless children. Let me spoil you. Grace leaned closer and kissed his hand. Chief, you don't know how much I've suffered. Since we entered this village, I've not even allowed Richard to touch me. I don't even sleep near him anymore. I already belong to you. Chief Morgan laughed heartily. That's my woman, that's the spirit. He reached into his bag and brought out a small bundle of money. Take this 20,000, buy new wrappers. Next week we'll start building your new house. I've already called a surveyor. Grace's heart danced. She held the money like a treasure. You're an angel, Chief. May your enemies never find you. They stayed together in the room until evening. When it was time to leave, Peace gave Grace a backdoor exit so no one would see her leaving. As she walked home, Grace smiled from ear to ear. She couldn't wait to tell Sophia. Back at the house, Richard sat outside with Daniel, fixing a broken bench. Daniel looked up and asked, Where's Mum again? Richard sighed. She went to fetch firewood, or maybe she's with the women group. Daniel didn't believe it. She doesn't even know how to hold firewood. When Grace finally returned, she threw down a nylon bag filled with meat, groundnut oil, and canned fish. Where did you get all these? Richard asked in shock. A woman in the village market gave me. Her husband is a trader, Grace lied smoothly. That night, Grace served only herself and Sophia from the special meal. Richard and Daniel had to drink Gary again. Inside their room, Grace whispered to Sophia everything the chief had said. Sophia's eyes grew wide. Are you serious? She whispered. Grace nodded. Very. He's even richer than your father ever was. Sophia giggled. Mummy, if I find my own sugar daddy here, I'll never go back to that boring city. They both laughed like two wicked sisters. The sun was hot that afternoon. Villagers moved about slowly, carrying firewood on their heads and buckets of water in their hands. But Sophia sat outside their compound, chewing gum and scrolling through her dead phone, pretending to be busy even though there was no signal. She was dressed in a tight, shiny gown she had secretly collected from Mr. Brown, one of the married men she had been seeing. That same Mr. Brown had lied to his wife the day before that he was attending a men's meeting in another village. Instead, he had taken Sophia to a bush path near his farm and spent hours with her under a tree. But bad news travels fast in the village. That same afternoon, as Sophia relaxed outside, a woman walked straight into their compound with fire in her eyes. It was Mrs. Brown, the wife of the man Sophia had been sleeping with. Where is that useless girl? Mrs. Brown shouted. Come out now. Sophia looked up from her chair, crossed her legs, and slowly removed her chewing gum. Yes? She asked, raising one eyebrow. Who is shouting like a mad woman in this compound? You are the one I came to see, shameless thing, the woman barked. Stay away from my husband. Do you hear me? Stay away. Sophia laughed out loud. Your husband? Madam, please don't make me laugh. That man came to me himself. What do you want me to do? Mrs. Brown's eyes turned red. Shut your dirty mouth. I've been married to that man for 18 years, and now a small rat like you wants to destroy my home. Sophia stood up, still chewing gum, and looked the woman up and down. See you. You look like poverty itself. That's why your husband chose me. Look at your legs, dry like roasted plantain. No wonder he's tired of you. You're insulting me, Mrs. Brown shouted. Sophia stepped closer. Let me warn you, don't try me, old woman. You can't fight me. You're too classless and local. Your husband wants fresh skin, not village bones. You hear me? The woman's hands began to shake. Sophia, I'm warning you. Stay away from my husband or else. Sophia clapped her hands. Or else what? You will do nothing. You hear me? Nothing. In fact, I will take your husband from you completely. Just watch me. Mrs. Brown's eyes filled with tears as she pointed a finger at Sophia. God will judge you. Then she turned and walked away, shaking with anger. Just as she left the compound, Richard stepped out from the corner where he had been fixing a broken chair. He had heard every single word. Sophia, he called softly. She turned around and rolled her eyes. Oh great, here we go. I heard everything, Richard said, walking slowly toward her. Is it true? Are you sleeping with that woman's husband? Sophia picked her nail and replied without looking at him. So what if I am? Richard's voice was calm but filled with pain. My daughter, this is wrong. You're young. You have a whole future ahead of you. Why would you destroy someone's home? Sophia hissed. Please, Daddy, mind your business. Richard paused. Sophia, I am your father. It is my business. Which father? She snapped. The one who dragged us from a mansion to this dirty village. You couldn't even manage your business well. Now see where we are, fetching water, eating dry rice without meat. You call yourself my father? Richard blinked, shocked by her words. I know things are hard now, but... But what? She cut him off. But nothing. I hate this life. You spoilt everything for us. I had friends. I had followers online. I had boys begging to date me. Now I'm here, smelling like smoke and wearing slippers made from tires. Tears welled up in Richard's eyes, but he held them back. All I'm saying, he whispered, is that you should stop following married men. Focus on your life. This is not the right path. Sophia laughed bitterly. Which life should I focus on? The one you destroyed? You couldn't keep your company. You couldn't protect your family. Look around, Dad. We're living like rats. You are the reason we're suffering. And I don't care what you think of me. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. She stormed inside the house, leaving Richard standing alone, broken and speechless. From inside the room, Daniel watched everything. He wanted to speak, but he knew this wasn't the time. His heart burned for his father. Later that night, Richard sat outside alone, staring at the sky. The moon was bright, but his heart was dark. He had lost control of his own family. The loyalty test he created was revealing more than he expected. The morning breeze was cool, birds sang from nearby trees, but the silence inside the small house was heavy. Daniel stood by the wooden door, watching his mother dress up again. She had on her best wrapper, bright earrings, and red lipstick that didn't match the early hour. He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. Mother. Grace turned slowly, adjusting her blouse. What is it again, Daniel? Daniel folded his arms. I want to talk to you. Please listen. She sighed and looked away. If it's another lecture about my life, just stop. I've had enough. Daniel didn't move. Mother, this life you're living, the one you and Sophia are choosing, it's not good. People are talking in this village. Grace chuckled dryly. Let them talk. Talking is free. Daniel stepped forward. It's not just about gossip. It's about respect. Your name, your honor. What happened to the strong woman I used to know? Grace's face changed. She looked Daniel in the eye. That strong woman died the day your father became useless, the day he dragged us from a mansion to this shameful village. Daniel swallowed. He's still your husband. He used to be, she snapped, before he failed us, before he became a poor man who can't even buy soap. Daniel took a breath. So that's it? Because money is gone, love is gone too. Grace laughed bitterly. Love? Who eats love? Who wears love? Who lives in love? Mother, Daniel said softly, even if you're angry at Dad, is this the solution? Dressing up every day and leaving like a stranger? Avoiding your home? Avoiding your husband? Grace picked up her cheap handbag. Since your father chose to be useless, let him face the result. I have no pity for him. Daniel frowned. Even the man you're following around, I don't see any impact in your life. What has he given you that's better than what Dad ever gave? Grace raised her chin proudly. He gives me peace of mind. He gives me attention. He shows me I still matter. Daniel shook his head. He gives you change, mother. Small change. And you're happy about that? You used to sleep on king-size beds and fly to Lagos just to buy hair. Now you take 5,000 naira and smile like it's a miracle. Grace's face darkened. Watch your tongue, Daniel. I'm still your mother. I know, Daniel said, voice firm. That's why I'm telling you the truth, because I still believe you can change. Grace looked away, pretending to adjust her wrapper. Your father will never be rich again. That man is finished. Daniel's eyes burned. You don't know the future. She pointed at the wall. Look around you. Does this look like a man who is going somewhere? Daniel took a deep breath. Yes, because I believe in him. I believe he will rise again. I believe he will stand up. And when that time comes, you will regret every word. Grace laughed coldly. Don't worry. Wait until the house I'm building is complete. I will soon leave this place. I will leave you, your poor last father, and this rubbish life. Daniel clenched his fists. His voice dropped low. You should be ashamed of yourself. Grace's eyes widened. What did you say? You heard me, he said. You should be ashamed, not just for betraying Dad, but for betraying yourself, for throwing away your dignity for nothing. Silence. Grace looked at him, her eyes softening just for a second, but only for a second. She picked up her bag and turned to the door. Be careful how you talk to me, Daniel. I'm still your mother. She walked out, leaving Daniel standing in the doorway, tears forming in his eyes. Grace walked alone on the dusty village road, her wrapper slightly lifted above her ankles to avoid the mud. She swung her small handbag and hummed a sweet tune, thinking of the new house Chief Morgan had promised her. Her mind was filled with dreams, big house, golden bangles, soft bed, and freedom from Richard's poverty. But suddenly she heard a sharp voice behind her. Husband snatcher, so this is the road you pass every day to see the chief, eh? Grace turned quickly. It was Ijoma, one of the chief's wives. She stood at the edge of the road, arms folded across her chest, eyes full of fire. Grace raised an eyebrow. Look at this one, local champion. Who invited you to talk to me? Ijoma stepped forward. Me? Local? You that came from the city to scatter people's marriage? You should hide your face in shame. Grace hissed and moved closer. You think I'm afraid of you? I used to wear diamonds. Do you even know the smell of perfume? Don't try me. Ijoma laughed hard. You that claimed you were a billionaire's wife, what are you now doing with a poor chief who moves around with fake gold and empty promises? Grace froze for a second. What did you say? She asked slowly. I said the gold he wears is fake. Everybody knows. You're following a man with glittering lies. Wise up, woman. Use your brain. Grace pushed her. Don't insult me. You're just jealous because the chief picked me over you. Ijoma pushed her back. Because you opened your legs for him. Nonsense. In a flash, both women grabbed each other's wrappers. Dust flew as they dragged themselves in the middle of the road, shouting and cursing. Some passers-by stopped and watched, shaking their heads. A young boy ran past and shouted, "Come and see city woman fighting over chief." Grace broke free and adjusted her wrapper quickly. Rubbish, she shouted and stormed off, breathing heavily. She didn't stop until she reached Golden Moon Lodge. Her chest was rising and falling fast as she knocked on the door to Chief Morgan's usual room. Come in, the chief said lazily. Grace opened the door and entered. She didn't even greet him. What's the meaning of all this? She asked angrily. The chief looked up from his plate of food. What is it? I just fought one of your wives on the road, Grace snapped. She said your gold is fake, that you're a poor chief with borrowed clothes and empty words. The chief wiped his mouth slowly. And you believed her? Grace folded her arms. You know what? I've never really looked at that your gold well. Bring it. Let me touch it. He raised an eyebrow. Are you mad? She shouted. Answer me. Is your gold real or fake? The chief stood up slowly. Of course it's real, Grace scoffed. Lies. You must think I'm a fool. The only reason I didn't notice before was because I used to live with real diamonds. I wore the finest things. Our toilet had gold handles. Our kitchen had marble floors. The chief frowned. And yet you left all that to follow me. You're the foolish one. What did you say? Grace gasped. You heard me, the chief shouted. What will I be doing with a woman who left her husband just because of money? If poverty can move your heart, then you have no value, you're cheap. Grace stepped back. So that's how you see me? Yes, he shouted. You think you're special? You're just like the others. At least my wives stayed with me when I had nothing. But you ran from one poor man to another. Grace shook her head slowly, eyes full of tears and anger. God will judge you. Leave my room, the chief barked, and don't come back here again. Grace turned and stormed out, her face red with shame. As she walked home, some villagers passing by saw her and whispered loudly. See the city woman, one said. Nashide sleep with people husband, another added. She thought she was special, someone laughed. Now see her walking alone like a lost goat. Grace hurried her steps, pretending not to hear them. But their words followed her like shadows. Her dream life had scattered like dry leaves in the wind. She reached her compound, sat on a stone outside, and covered her face with her hands. Everything felt heavy. The laughter from the villagers, the insult from the chief, the shame from fighting in public, it all kept ringing in her ears. She placed her hand on her chest and sighed deeply. What kind of life is this? Just then, footsteps approached slowly behind her. She didn't need to turn, she already knew who it was. Grace, Richard said quietly. She didn't answer, she just stared at the ground. He moved closer and stood before her. His voice was cold, low, and full of pain. I am ashamed of you. Grace looked up slowly. What did you say? I said I am ashamed, Richard repeated. The whole village is talking. My name is everywhere because of you. They said you fought someone's wife on the road. Over a man. Grace stood up slowly. So you came here to insult me too? Richard's voice rose. What kind of woman have you become? Is this how far you've fallen? From a billionaire's wife to a roadside fighter? Grace laughed bitterly. And who made me fall? You. You failed us. You dragged us from the top to the bottom. Now you open your dirty mouth to talk to me. Richard shook his head. You call yourself a woman. You threw away your shame for small money. You chased after a man with fake gold, and you're still here shouting. Grace placed her hands on her hips. If you're done talking, go inside. This village belongs to me now. You're nobody here. Richard looked her in the eye. You're the one who lost, not me. He turned and walked away. The next morning, Grace was sitting outside. When Richard came out, she ignored him. I got a job, he said calmly. Grace glanced at him. And so? In the city, he continued, as a security man. It's small, but it's a start. I told Daniel, we'll be leaving tomorrow. Grace burst into laughter. Security man, you, in this, your old age, you're truly finished. So you want me to follow you to the city and be answering Madam Security Wife, right? I didn't ask you to follow me, Richard said. You made your choice already. She laughed louder. Go. I prefer staying in this village than living with a security man. In fact, I'm happy. At least now I can breathe. Richard nodded slowly. So be it. The next day, Daniel packed his small bag and followed his father to the village motor park. He didn't even look back. Grace and Sophia sat outside the house and laughing loudly. Finally, Sophia said, the house is peaceful. Grace smiled. Nobody to disturb us with prayers and preaching. I can now live my life freely. Sophia giggled. No more Daniel asking where I'm going or when I'll be back. Grace raised her wrapper higher and stretched her legs. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Let them go and suffer in the city. This village is better than being around poverty and fake holiness. They both laughed. The morning sun was already high as Richard and Daniel arrived in the city. The streets were bustling with cars and people, a stark contrast to the quiet village they had left behind. Daniel looked around, taking in the sights and sounds of the city, wondering where they were heading. After walking through several streets, they stopped in front of a large mansion surrounded by a high fence and an electronic gate. The house was beautiful, with large windows and a lush garden visible beyond the gate. Daniel turned to his father, confused. Daddy, what are we doing here? Is this where you work now? Richard smiled slightly, a mysterious glint in his eye. No, Daniel, this isn't where I work. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a remote, and clicked a button. The gate slowly opened. Come on, he said, leading Daniel inside. As they walked up the driveway, Daniel's eyes widened. The mansion was even more impressive up close, with a fountain in the front yard and expensive cars parked in the driveway. "Daddy, I don't understand. Whose house is this?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with curiosity and awe. Richard took a deep breath and turned to face his son. "This, Daniel, is our house. Our new home." Daniel's jaw dropped. "Ours? But how? I thought we were poor." Richard chuckled softly. "We were never really poor, Daniel. I sold our old house because I needed to teach everyone a lesson, especially your mother and sister. I didn't like how we were all spending money without thinking. We were losing our values, our respect for money." Daniel was silent for a moment, trying to process everything. "So, all this time in the village—" "It was a test," Richard interrupted, his expression serious. "A test to see who truly valued family and who was just there for the comfort and money." Daniel looked down, thinking about his mother and sister, how quickly they had adapted to their new lives without him or his father. And Mom and Sophia? Richard's face hardened slightly. "They made their choices, Daniel. I offered them a chance to come back, but they refused. They chose a different path." Daniel felt a mix of emotions: anger, relief, sadness. "I guess they never really understood what was important." "No, they didn't," Richard agreed. "But you did, Daniel. You stayed by my side, even when things were tough. That's why I'm showing you this now. This house, this life. It's for us now. For those who value what truly matters." Daniel walked around the living room, touching the soft leather sofas and looking at the artwork on the walls. It was all so luxurious, so far from their humble beginnings in the village. "Dad," Daniel finally said, turning to Richard with a serious look, "I'm not happy about the deception, but I understand why you did it. I just wish things could have been different with Mom and Sophia." Richard nodded, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "I wish that too. But we can't change people, only how we react to them. Now let's focus on building a new life here, one that's true to our values." Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of loss and hope. "Let's make this a home we can both be proud of." Richard smiled, relief evident in his eyes. "That's my boy. Let's start fresh, and this time, let's get it right." As they walked through their new home, planning and talking about the future, the weight of the past began to lift. They were together, they had each other, and that was enough to start anew. Meanwhile, back in the village, Grace and Sophia were sitting outside the hut. Suddenly, a slim, tall man walked up to them. His name was Ikenna, a village man known for gossip and market talk. He stood a few feet away, breathing fast, holding a rolled newspaper in one hand. "Good afternoon, Madam Grace, Sister Sophia," he greeted politely. Grace looked at him from head to toe. "Ehen, Ikenna, what is it? You came to borrow pepper or what?" "No, madam," Ikenna said with excitement. "I just returned from the city yesterday, and guess what I saw with my own two eyes?" Sophia yawned. "If it's not about money or fashion, please don't disturb our peace." The man smiled. "It's about your husband." Mr. Richard Grace paused. Sophia rolled her eyes. "Your husband is now rich again," Ikenna announced. "He's living in a big mansion. A house even finer than the one you people lost. I swear with my life." Grace looked at him and burst into laughter. "You're a very funny man, Ikenna." Sophia joined her. "Are you okay? Or is the city sun still disturbing your head?" "I'm serious," Ikenna insisted. "The house has marble floors, fountain, big cars. People say it's his. I even saw Daniel with him. They were both looking fresh, clean, and rich." Grace slapped her thigh and laughed louder. "Let me guess. You think he bought it, right? My friend, that house belongs to his boss. That man is a security man. Do you hear me?" "Security," Sophia nodded. "My daddy, a rich man again, with that old face and torn clothes. He must be washing car or cutting grass for the real owner of the house." Ikenna frowned. "But I saw him open the gate with a remote. He even told someone it's his house." Grace hissed. "Remote? Is that proof? Maybe he was just told to clean the place. Don't let this foolish man confuse you." Sophia crossed her legs. "That's how poor people act rich. Let him continue pretending. We know him too well." Ikenna scratched his head. "But what if he's truly rich again?" Grace stood up, placed her hand on her waist, and said with pride, "Let me tell you, Ikenna, That man can never make it again. Never. His suffering is permanent. He's a finished man. Don't waste your energy defending a failure. Sophia stood beside her. In fact, since you love him so much, go and tell him we said he's still a disgrace. Tell him that his wife and daughter said so. They both laughed again. Ikenna shook his head sadly. I just thought you should know. Now you know we don't care, Grace said sharply. Carry your gossip and go. We're busy. Ikenna turned and walked away slowly, shaking his head. He had seen pride before, but this one was different. As soon as he left, Grace sat back down, smiling with pride. Sophia, she said, I didn't want to say anything in front of him, but let me tell you the good news. Sophia turned to her mother eagerly. What is it? Grace whispered. The king has asked me to be his wife. I'm now dating the king. Sophia screamed, Mama, you want to be queen? Grace nodded proudly. Yes. Once he marries me, I'll move into the palace. I'll wear beads, silk, and walk with maids behind me. They both laughed again, imagining the fake royal life. Me too, Sophia added. That married man I'm seeing now said he wants to divorce his wife and marry me. Grace clapped. You see? Good things are coming our way. Sophia smiled and looked at the sky. Soon we'll be on top again. No more people asking where we're coming from. No more stress. No more lectures from Daniel or shame from that poor man you call husband. Grace laughed loudly. Let them stay in the city and die with fake riches. We'll rise in this village and rule. They both laughed and laughed, without knowing they were celebrating foolishness. They didn't know they had lost the real crown, the real treasure. Time was ticking, and truth was coming like a storm. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.